Hello, in this video I want to talk about the scapegoat, the golden child and the invisible child, and the roles that they are allocated in an emotionally abusive family. The singling out of a person to take the blame for the wrongdoings or mistakes of another person is known as scapegoating, and the singling out of a person to provide attention for the parent, it can appear insidious, is the golden child. And the singling out of a person who has no role, or perhaps no singling out but no appointing of a role, is the invisible child. Hello, my name's Elizabeth Goddard. I'm the author of Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse. On this channel, I talk about healing from emotional abuse and divorcing both emotionally and physically from the abuser. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're returning, welcome back and thank you. And thank you so much for all my new subscribers over the last few weeks. It's been amazing. Thank you. So as I said, in this video, I want to talk about the three roles: the scapegoat, the golden child and the invisible child, that are allocated within families. So as children, we're sponges and we believe everything that we're told. We believe it to be true. We have nothing to judge it against. And if you observe a small baby who is reliant on the adults around him or her to keep them alive, you can start to understand how programming happens. So up until the ages of around 7 or 8 years old, everything that a child hears, they believe to be true. And it isn't until they start to visit other people's homes or they see how other people behave and interact that they might question things. The programming by the parent that they receive might be that there's nothing wrong with their unit and it's everybody else's unit or tribe that has an issue. And you'll probably have realised by now that with the emotional abuser, nothing is their fault. To protect a fragile sense of self, the emotionally abusive parent might even highlight faults in other family units or highlight how children are treated in order to create smoke and mirrors, a situation of distraction. If you had one or both parents that were higher on the spectrum, you might have been allocated a role early on in life. And in this video, I want to look at the roles that are allocated to children by emotionally unhealthy parents: the scapegoat, the golden child, and the invisible child. In the Bible, a scapegoat is one of two kid goats. As a pair, one goat is sacrificed, and the living scapegoat was released into the wilderness, taking with it the sins and impurities of the tribe. In the family unit or tribe, it might be that the feelings of the emotionally abusive parent are not balanced. A parent singles out and punishes one child for the wrongdoings of their siblings, or allows their feelings towards a child get in the way of the help favouring other children in their care. Scapegoating involves punishment rather than rewards and is based around judgment. And as adults, it can bring up feelings of shame, abandonment and guilt. When we think about families and their bonds, we see them as caring and supportive, but this isn't always the case, especially if the unit has either a narcissistic or a controlling parent in charge of it. With the role of the scapegoat, there is the temporary and the permanent role. For this video, we'll be looking at the three different roles, and we'll be looking at the scapegoat as the individual, as the permanent. The emotionally abusive or toxic or controlling parent expects everything to be done their way, and if that doesn't happen, they need someone to take the blame. Nothing will ever be their fault, and they blame shift to protect their fragile sense of self. A reasonably well-adjusted person might get annoyed if something doesn't go to plan or how they visualised it happening. But being balanced, they can usually work through the process of events that led up to that situation. The emotionally abusive parent can't do this, and it needs someone to blame for a situation. The role scapegoat is given to one child, which means the child is open to family mobbing. Because we are programmed from an early age, it means that the siblings of a scapegoat will understand the role and will also partake in the blaming. They may even see it as a way of keeping in the good books of the parent or a way of staying out of trouble. knowing it doesn't matter what they do, they're never going to receive punishment for their actions. Perhaps the scapegoat is seen as a threat to the family unit. The permanent scapegoated child is possibly the only person in the family who saw the toxic patterns and, because of this, is more likely to seek help healing from these wounds. Her siblings who have bought into the family story continue the codependent pattern, walking on eggshells and keeping their parents' secrets, playing happy families. And because the scapegoat can see through the dynamics or sees the patterns, they're targeted. They're undermined and conditioned so others will not listen to what they have to say. As they understand the dynamics, they get isolated, criticised. And this happens with all members of the family unit and outside of it. The scapegoat is always causing trouble. They are always the ones to ruin it for everyone. The scapegoat is gaslighted from a very young age, and this confusion carries on for the whole of their childhood. Remember, we are programmed from the day we're born. So for the majority of their childhood, it's spent being gaslighted and blamed for something they didn't do, or being constantly manipulated and emotionally abused, arriving in adulthood with low self-esteem and feelings of alienation or feeling lost and even perhaps trapped. May suffer from not having a sense of belonging, and they may seek this in relationships, lurching from one poor choice to the next. The hope is that they're able to set firm boundaries with their family system, and the scapegoat is often the only child in the family who looks at healing themselves. The emotionally abusive parent creates stories early on, and other members of the family maybe are actively encouraged to take part in this game. And the abusive parent may create a facade and many stories to back themselves up. They wear a mask, which they hide behind, encouraging that entourage to join in. The designated scapegoat is used as a screen to hide the parent's behaviour or the dysfunction in the family. Children from an early age learn how to detect their parents' mood, and they walk on eggshells, not wanting to upset them. But believe it or not, it's not just the scapegoat who's affected by the dynamic. Robbed of a childhood where they should have been protected, the scapegoat might become a high achiever or very competitive. They may, on the other hand, have stored all those negative messages they heard growing up, and in an attempt to avoid failure, may have problems settling or accomplishing their own goals. Another role that's allocated in the toxic family unit is the golden child. The golden child is as much a victim to this type of abuse as the scapegoat. The golden child is the best child in the eyes of the abusive parent. This is the child that the parent gives more attention to, as they will make them look good. The child might excel in a sport or academically, or be the beauty pageant contestant. And through association, the parent is able to brag about their achievements, which gains them supply. The golden child is a form of currency. They are the vessel that brings attention to a parent from their own family. A bit like a male baby that holds in some cultures the esteem. They will carry on the family name, or a male child or female child that holds prestige in a larger unit. For centuries in the royal families around the world and other cultures, they would procreate for the son to become the heir, to take on the name. The golden child may grow up believing they deserve the attention. However, not all of them may feel worthy of this role, and some might even feel guilty as they are able to see that they're being treated differently, and they might even notice that there is a scapegoat. The role of the golden child has a lot of pressure, and as they grow, they might lose interest in the activity that gains the parent so much attention. The message the golden child receives from the relationship is one of conditional love. The child is only worthy of attention by behaving in a certain way. and is rejected if they don't perform. Like Pavlov's dog, they have been conditioned in a certain way. Pavlov was experimenting with dogs and saliva and discovered that they produced more saliva when they heard the footsteps of his assistants, and they had learned to associate that sound with food. I'll link the video on that below. Like the dog, the child has learned that if they perform in a certain way, that their parent will be happy. If the golden child didn't fall from grace and still held that title, as they move into adulthood, they might be left in the position of taking on the care and responsibility of their emotionally abusive parent or parents, especially if the scapegoat woke up to their role and decided to set boundaries. So the crown the golden child once wore now becomes their shackle. And if there are enough children in the family, the third role is that of the invisible child. And as with the other roles, the invisible child is yet another victim in this family dynamic. They are as much, if not more, of a victim than the golden child or the scapegoat. The invisible child is the neglected child who faded into the background without an official role. They are not singled out like the scapegoat for the negative attention. They are ignored. The emotional abusive parent or parents are self-serving. They are the universe, and they believe everything revolves around them and their needs. So if a child has nothing to offer, they get overlooked. They are overshadowed by the golden child, and believe it or not, the scapegoat. They then spend their time trying to get attention, and that could either be in a positive way or a negative way. They don't have the emotional maturity to understand the role of the scapegoat, and that it doesn't hold any value, that it is actually a punishment. They see it as attention, and they then go looking at ways to gain that attention. Children need to be noticed to grow and thrive. The invisible child grows into an adult that wants to be seen. The message they received as a child was that they had to work hard to be noticed or to get attention. The parent allocates these roles and they then play their games through triangulation. And the children are pitted against each other. And in some instances, the golden child and the invisible child are actively encouraged to gang up on against the scapegoat. And of course, the invisible child takes on this programming, believing that they will get the attention and conditional love they crave. As adults, the scapegoat, golden child, and invisible child may then try to forge a relationship, but they might find that the parent tries to sabotage their attempts. The emotionally abusive parent cannot risk them getting together and comparing notes, or even healing the wounds that were created. The aging narcissistic parent keeps playing these games and continuing to control their children, turning to them for protection, and because of the rules, they duly comply. Each of the children will enter the adult world believing that love is conditional. They will pussyfoot around their parents, walking on eggshells, unaware of why they behave the way they do, only aware on a subconscious level that they need to protect themselves. The emotionally abusive parent sees their children as extensions of themselves. The abusive parent laid the groundwork from the beginning. The scapegoat was always the problem, causing drama, and the parent created stories about the child. The scapegoat grows up to become the black sheep, always a problem, never fitted in, never one of us. When the scapegoat tries to challenge the dynamics, they are challenged. And it's so easy for everyone in the family to turn on them. The abusive parent worked hard making sure that they would be judged and challenged, mounting a smear campaign and use other tactics to discredit the black sheep and anyone who took part in this abuse, because some families actively encourage baiting of one child may also need to heal for the role that they were encouraged to play. I hope you found this useful. If you'd like to find out more about working with me, I'll put the links to my website below, along with the links to both my books, Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse. I'll also put the links to my free workbooks, Turn Broken into Your Superpower and Self-Care is Vital. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'm sending you loads and loads and loads of love.